If you race, then having the ability to sprint well could well mean the difference between a glittering career or one of near misses, failed breakaways and therefore a life spent as a domestique.
But hey, we're not bitter. Here is what we should have done, and here's how to sprint faster. First things first, let's take a shortcut. You can sprint faster by getting more aero. You can do that through your equipment by getting an aero bike, a set of aero wheels, an aero helmet, or through your clothing too. But you can also change your body position, and that is of course free.
Yeah, now it was Mark Cavendish who really first brought this to everybody's attention by winning pretty much every sprint going all those years ago. And that was in part attributed to the fact that he was so low over his bars when he was sprinting. And it's clear that the emerging crop of sprinters have really taken Cav as an inspiration. Amongst them are Caleb Ewan, the Australian, who gets so low that he looks like he's precociously balancing on the front wheel, and that any slight ripple in the tarmac could send him tumbling down to the ground.
Yeah, we wouldn't necessarily advocate doing that, but keeping your elbows in and getting lower will help you to sprint much faster.
I was told by an exasperated team mechanic after yet another race where I finished at the back of the front group that I should, and I quote, just stick it in the 11. Now he was probably right on that occasion, but the fact is that gear selection and sprinting is much more complicated.
What speed are you going to be sprinting at? Very, very important, because a higher cadence will allow you to react and accelerate quicker, and actually for many people a higher cadence will allow you to produce a higher peak power.
Now, the downside to sprinting in lighter gears is that as you accelerate, you're definitely going to have to shift and under load, which gears don't often like. So you always need to make sure your bike is really well prepped for a ride or race. And that doesn't mean that you need SRAM ETAP or Shimano Di2, just smooth cables and some really thoughtful indexing.
Now, practice will soon help you find your ideal natural cadence. So it's a good idea not to follow anybody else, because we are all individuals. But do definitely try a little bit of experimentation.
Attitude also plays a major part in sprinting fast. So in such a head-to-head situation, it can be easy to get distracted by your rivals, and that distraction in a split second can turn into demoralisation. Now, we're not suggesting that you ignore your rivals completely. After all, you do want to beat them all to the finish line. But what you should do once you've committed to your final sprint is fully concentrate on your own effort, getting all the power you can through the pedals so you reach the finish line as quick as you possibly can.
What about riding technique then? We know to get aero, we know that gears might lead to faster sprinting, but how do you get the most power out of your body and onto the pedals? Well, your upper body could hold the key. This is the one occasion in road cycling where having a half-decent set of guns will help you to go faster. Certainly you'll need to grip the bars more tightly than usual, and then some riders find that pulling on the handlebars as well helps them to generate more power. Now, smoother riders might find that bracing the bars and concentrate on pedalling in circles will yield a better result, but there's no arguing that the most powerful sprinters in cycling can be found on BMXs, where many riders still use flat pedals.
At the end of the day though, the deciding factor in whether or not you can sprint really fast is whether or not you can unleash an inordinate amount of power through the pedals when it really matters. And this will largely come down to the type of muscle fibres that you possess. So explosive efforts will use vastly different muscle fibres to long efforts on climbs and long time trials. And that percentage of fast to slow twitch muscle fibres will largely be determined by your parents, or at least that's who I'm blaming for my particularly poor sprinting ability. But it must also be said that there's also a large influence from training.
Exactly. If you want to get fast at sprinting, you need to work at it, and it doesn't have to be a drag. You can try sprinting against your mates from time to time on a ride, or if you really want to improve, a few structured sprint sessions in a week-long block, and repeating this every few weeks or so will help you to make some huge gains.
So, what are the 5 things that we've learned about sprinting? Well, first off, get yourself nice and aero, and focus, get your gear selection right, brace yourself when sprinting with your upper body, focus on yourself and not the rivals. Whoa, whoa! And don't neglect your training, like Lasty. You're absolutely flying.
If you want some ideas on how to train specifically for sprints, then you can click just up there. We've got a video on the subject.
Yeah, alternatively, just in that lower corner there, you can find our video which discusses who's better out of Mark Cavendish and Mario Cipollini.
Yeah, and to subscribe to GCN, click on the globe, wherever that may be.